the more that you make it about you, the harder you're going to cap it. You know what I mean? Like you, if you're the only person who's going to tell the story, then it's not going to get told to very many people.
Sure.
And so the letting go of that was just like a lot more painful than I thought it was going to be, because I like feeling like I'm a big deal. And but realizing that like that nobody gets, including me, nobody really gets what they want out of that.
Hello and welcome to the Remarkable CEO Podcast, a show dedicated to chiropractors who want to transform their job into a business so that they can have a remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life, not instead of one. With your hosts, Dr. Pete Camiolo and Dr. Stephen Franson.
All right, what's up, guys? So thanks so much for jumping into this conversation. It's another conversation with one of our remarkable CEO teams. The Remarkable CEO program is the program that we have for our scale doctors that are in the scale season of their career. So launch, build, scale, and exit. Launch is first year in business. Build is when you're established, but you're an owner operator, right? You're the sole practitioner, the sole provider. You're the one that owns the practice, but you're the one that's head down, bum up, taking care of all the patients. Scale is when you take that job that you love and turn it into the business you've always wanted. And that's usually by taking on associate doctors. Sometimes it's taking on partnerships, which is what this conversation is all about, is how to create a remarkable partnership. I think when you get this right, 1 + 1 = 11 with the right partnership. So that's the conversation that we want to have today, because these two gentlemen, these two awesome world-class chiropractors, have pulled off what most people would say is impossible, right? So relationships are hard, business is hard, business and relationships are hard. Dr. Aaron, I really appreciate you coming in for this conversation. Dr. Nate, awesome to have you aboard. I'd love to hear your story. Let's just start from the start. Why don't you guys give us just a little bit of a backdrop, a little bit of a background, and let's get after it.
Yeah. So Nate and I went to chiropractic college together. We met first day of school, been really good buddies ever since. And we'd never really gone anywhere. We're from the Midwest, and we both moved out to Seattle after school just to kind of looking for adventure, and worked as associate doctors in separate practices, lived together. Yeah, just we're having a great experience, living life. And we had talked just a little bit about opening a practice together, and just we decided not to, and we opened separate practices after our associateships and ran those for about 15 years.
Yeah.
And
15 years. You each had separate and distinct practices for 15 years.
Correct. Yeah. 2 successful practices. They were successful in the sense that they are open and making money, right? But we were both stuck. I was hitting a hard ceiling, and so was Nate at where I was at for probably 10 years before we partnered up. I grew. My first 5 years was just meteoric, awesome growth. And then it, boom, stayed there for 10 years. And it was really frustrating. Got more frustrating every year. And what kind of brought it to a head was during COVID. I just friggin' didn't like coming to work. I know it was different parts of the world, but out here, the public's reaction to COVID was really brutal. And for a principal chiropractor, it was the exact opposite of how we choose to live. And I felt very lonely, and just didn't like coming to work, man. It wasn't good. That didn't help practice at all. And so Nate and I had a conversation on New Year's Eve, 2021, actually. I've talked a lot. I'm gonna let you take it there.
Yeah. We just had our wives and I, and Aaron and his wife and my wife and I got together, and it was New Year's Eve, and Aaron and I were having a cigar and a bourbon out on the deck, and Aaron had an agenda, but we got into it, and by the end of this conversation, we walked back inside where our wives were, and announced that we had hatched this amazing plan that we were going to put together. And our wives, which you probably had your wife look at you like this before. Our wives just looked at us like, yeah, you guys are idiots. You should be doing it a long time ago. But I mean, all that to say, we couldn't have done it 15 years prior with where we were. Talk about like our own paths, ego, maturity, all those things. And so when we came together, it was the right time. And we knew we needed a system, right? Like we've known each other for 20 years at this point. We know each other's rhythms. And like you say, right, 1 + 1 doesn't = 2, it = 11. And when we're rolling together, we certainly feel that. Boy, we felt it for 20 years as friends, and we certainly feel it in the office now as well. And so we needed systems. We needed something with to give us a plan for how to do this, because we knew we were going into uncharted territory for us. We knew the friendship was going to be the top thing. We knew that we wanted to provide we didn't want to, our business had run our lives for 15 years, right? Both our wives knew that independently, and we were ready to break out of that. And when we approached you and the Remarkable Practice, boy, one of the first things you said was like, you need a remarkable practice as part of your remarkable life, not the other way around. And we both heard that and hit the ground running with the systems and the program, the Chiropractic Operating System, gave us that framework to just like build and build and build this thing.
Awesome. All right, guys. So the purpose of a business is to add value to another person or another business, right? So solving problems is typically the way we add value, right? It's either helping you solve problems or helping you reach goals. So if I could hear from each one of you, it's like, let's talk about BDA before, during, and after. So before you guys came together, what kind of problems were you trying to solve? It's like, very often people will say, when you look at a partnership, it's like, hey, yeah, I've got a person, I'm dealing with all my own issues. Let me find another person that's dealing with a whole bunch of issues. Let's get married and we'll solve each other. You complete me. You fix us. It's like business does not work that way, right? So it's like you have like the collisions of two dysfunctional systems. And I know you guys, I can say that to you. You recognize that together you guys are going to be better than you were apart, right? The sum of the parts, so to speak. So why don't you speak to each one of those? Nate, Aaron, why don't you speak to us, like, what kind of problems did you knew you were trying to solve by coming to us as a coaching organization, being like, I understand these problems need to be solved for this partnership to stand a chance?
Yeah, I think that's actually how our relationship with the Remarkable Practice started, was that before we launched together, before we formed our partnership, we had a friend who coaches with TRP, and we had come to him for a little bit of advice, and he was like, you guys need to talk to this guy. You need to talk to Dr. Prince. We'd heard you speak plenty of times before, but we'd never spoken with you in person. And so we got to sit down with you, and we didn't join the Remarkable Practice. We actually hired you for an hour of your time to sit down with us and go through things, because we knew, like Nate said earlier, that the relationship was the thing we wanted to preserve more than anything else. And we knew that it's unusual for this to work out, but we felt like it was the right thing to do. And so that's how our relationship with you started. It was a powerful hour of opening up a lot of clarity on like what was going to come next, what the first walls we were going to hit were, what the first hurdles, all that kind of stuff. So based on that conversation alone, we decided to start coaching with you, and went to our first immersion. It was very eye-opening on and what we were talking about before, during, and after. Before, to call my practice, the practice we function in now, to call that practice Systems Light would be generous. It's built entirely around my personality, which is why it had never moved, right? Like it capped out where I capped out, and it just was waiting to die right there. And so this idea of systems, I was really resistant to it because it sounded really hard and all kinds of work that I didn't want to have to do.
Yep.
And so when you say, like, I've got problems, Nate's got problems, let's get married and form a business, there's definitely elements of that. But one of the real upsides is, in Nate and I's situation, we cover each other's blind spots really, really well. Like the things that I'm strong in, we can bring to the table, and then all of my weaknesses are strengths for him. And so thankfully, when we joined TRP, Nate took to it pretty strongly and was like, this is definitely what we need. I love this kind of stuff. And I guess I'll let you speak into
Beautiful.
that.
So before you add anything to that, Nate, I want to double click on something that Dr. Aaron just said there, which is super common, by the way, for successful chiropractors, common for successful chiropractors. As you said it from the beginning, you came out of the gates, hit the ground running, and you had this meteoric rise, right? So it's like, and then you topped off. You didn't crash. You just started to flatten out, right? So, and you said it yourself, I ran it as a personality-based practice. It's like, at the end of the day, I know your heart, I know your mission, I know your purpose. You're on purpose, right? So, but what was building and growing and what was so attractive was Dr. Aaron, right? So, and it's like, the strength of the leader becomes the weakness of the organization, right? So it's like Aaron's not scalable, right? So everybody experiences, somebody who tries to do it that way, you experience a rise and then you plateau, and you're like, oh man. And it's so frustrating because like, what, that math doesn't math. Like, why doesn't it just keep going and growing? It's just like, ultimately you're running it on passion, on your personal horsepower, right? So brute force, we call it, right? So when you start bringing in systems, which is the second part of what you said, systems are scalable, right? Systems allow you to delegate. So you can focus on being the magic man. You're not giving up your personality, your persona, but you're now using leverage as opposed to brute force to build the business, right? So I didn't want to lose that because that is a super common thing that people, it's very, very frustrating, right? So the strength of the leader becomes the weakness of the organization, right? Nate, speak to the systems, and you took to a dog to a bone on this stuff.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, you can see it right away, right? I mean, knowing Aaron for 20 years, right? That's the whole relationship we've had. And so to find the remarkable practice with systems that we could integrate and the team could be stronger, right? When we could build that out, it gave us guardrails, it gave us structure, it allowed our team to start to do what they do best as well, right? And not everything flowing, right? One channel, everything flow into Aaron. And then when I came in, we're able to kind of start to separate, take the accountability grid, all the different essential pieces of the business, start to mark it out. But it also allowed us to, as we coach with you, right? It's like, you can't chase 5 squirrels, right? And when Aaron and I first came together, it was like, there's 2 of us. We could chase 10 squirrels at the same time. But it gave us that common language that we could start to direct. And, as we've repeated the system, and gosh, we've been with you 4 years now. Each year it helps us start to just get more centered on the mission. And for Aaron and I to have a common vision and be able to do things that he's really good at, allow me to do things I'm really good at, and point both those things toward the priority and not have all these extraneous stuff going around. Boy, that's been the scalable piece that we are really looking at right now. So I think our first year together, we broke $1 million. First full year together, we broke $1 million, climbed up to 1.25 the next year, almost 1.4 last year. And our goal this year is a run rate of 1.75 in the fourth quarter with that. So we're pointing towards that. And I think we'll get there. I know that we'll get there.
Awesome.
We've been doing this year. And so it's been really cool to see that. But, just the language around this scaling that you've given us and that we've looked at, right? That chart that we had last time of like what an office does that meets $1 million to this $3 million mark. Everything is management, all roads lead to the CEO. And just to give us a layer of operations that separates the CEO, the operations, and then the team is going to help us do that. So that's been really cool to start to implement. And it took us a year, right? It took us a long time to do that because we made plenty of mistakes along the way. But each year has gotten better.
But what that effectively ends up looking like, Dr. Frank Hansen, is that after 4 years of doing this, both working together and being in TRP for that entire time, we'll have doubled our practice and with a smaller team. So that's the stat.
Wait a minute, that sounds like greater profit.
Yeah.
No money, no mission, no profit, no purpose. Yeah. So yeah, a 2x of the business. So now you guys aren't like new business, 15-year-old practices merging, coming together, forming a partnership. And it wasn't just, you just smashed 2 businesses together, right? So you've created this doubling of that with a smaller team, a more efficient team. Was all this at the expense of your life, or we said remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life, not instead of one. Let's talk about that. It's like, is that just a tagline, or, are we practicing what we preach here?
It's both. Yeah. I mean, we made a big commitment last year. We moved our schedule to a Monday through Thursday schedule, 4-day in the office. We hired an associate. So our associate's been with us 18 months and that allowed us some freedom. So Aaron and I are both in the office 3 days a week. So that gives us more freedom at home and continuing to build those other things. So we're really trying to do it with an eye on more freedom for us, more profitability for the office, and just being able to expand on that.
Yeah. And still making the same impact on humanity with
exactly. Yeah.
Built a business.
Yeah.
So do your wives still think you're crazy?
Sure.
Just not in this category.
Yeah. But they're big fans of the remarkable practice. I'll tell you that.
Well, we appreciate that. So Aaron, let me ask you, it's been fun to watch your, let me call it your evolution, right? You've made this ascension, like a hardcore ascension from, you're a 2nd-generation chiropractor, right? So you're rolling in just like dyed in the wool. And I don't play favorites, man, but I think I'm raising a chiropractor right now. And it's just like, every time you mention your dad, you talk about being the son of a chiropractor, I'm just like, oh my gosh, if my son can get up on my shoulders and jump, geez, man, that's going to be everything. So from when we've met, let's talk about you as a chiropractor. the practice and the business components, the ascension from owner operator to CEO. Like, what kind of identity shifts have you personally enjoyed? Because I've been watching it.
Yeah, man, it's mentioned my dad being a chiropractor. To do this at any kind of high level, you have to have a base of what you're trying to do, right? You have to believe in it. And so I was gifted that like at a really early age. And so I never wanted to be anything else. I've always known what it's for. I've always been into telling people about that. That part's all non-negotiable. What I didn't have is so my dad still practices, not because he has to, he's doing great financially, but he's in his 50th year of practice. He is an owner operator. You know what I mean? And that's what he wants to be. Like but that's not, I was in this for a little while before I realized that's not what I want to be. Right.
Right.
So I didn't have a model for that. Like I knew what I was trying to do and why it's important, but I didn't have a map at all. And so the ascension for me has just been about exactly what you described at the beginning of this call. Like the more that you make it about you, the harder you're going to cap it. You know what I mean? Like you, if you're the only person who's going to tell the story, then it's not going to get told to very many people.
Sure.
And so the letting go of that was just like a lot more painful than I thought it was going to be, because I like feeling like I'm a big deal. And but realizing that like that nobody gets, including me, nobody really gets what they want out of that. And so, yeah, it's been really freaking awesome to realize how much building just like you would build a foundation of chiropractic philosophy, you need a foundational business philosophy to practice on top of. Otherwise, like you are one person leaving away from everything freaking falling apart. Yeah.
Yeah. No depth in your bench, right? So just a point of exposure. You're still a big deal, man. So, you're still a big deal, probably a bigger deal now, but the ascension to CEO, going from owner operator to CEO, that is a identity shift, right? So it's where we go from being the machine to being the person who builds the machine, right? So it's this really strange shift of like, hey, I go from my job is to take care of all the customers to I build the team and the team takes care of the customers, right? So, and obviously customers in this place being the patients, like that's a hairball, right? Because we're really good at being the person that's hand-on. And by the way, that doesn't mean that you stop clinical care. You guys are both still involved in clinical care, right? So it's like people think that making the ascension is like, yeah, but I like taking care of patients. I'm like, listen, I never stopped taking care of patients, right? So 23 years, I adjusted patients the morning that we sold our practice. We went out to lunch after my Tuesday shift. I adjusted 100 people, then went for lunch and signed the documents. So it's like, I literally adjusted the day I sold the practice. Like I love doing that. Maybe that's your calling. It's like, I'm going to free myself up to do more clinical care, right? So, or I don't want to do any clinical care. I'm going to focus 100% on being CEO and training my team and doing marketing and new business development, whatever that is. That's called having optionality, right? So being able to choose what's the highest and best use of your time for the business and, in line with your purpose and your vision. So optionality is what everybody wants, but nobody really articulates it, right? So Nate, talk to me about like how you have had the freedom now to focus on what you're really good at, what you're really called to do. And it's like, there's a difference between getting to see patients and having to see patients, right? So it's like, how important is it that you guys actually is saying, hey, I'm going to focus on this. I'm wicked good at this and it energizes me. This is my genius. You focus on that. That's your genius. It energizes you. How does that feel having a partner like that?
Oh my, yeah. I mean, just, it's a continual evolution of that for sure. Right. Like and it's just like, we're continuing to find out, but to really not only to have a to-do list, but to have a stop doing list on the same side, on the other side of that.
Yeah.
And, to have the practice side of the coin, to have the business side of the coin, and to be able to have a priority on both those sides and the freedom to really zone in on what we're both really good at. I mean, it's not only good for us, but it's good for both the business and the practice at the same time and the community. Right. And so, boy, just each year, the more and more freedom to be able to focus on what I'm really good at. I'm really good at like taking complex problems and simplifying and just building off those things, starting to extract. So just the freedom to take on a big project like that and work through it and then see how it fits for the office and make it ours. That's really fun for me.
Awesome.
But I, again, just love working with patients and also love having those projects to work on outside the practice as well.
Love it. All right, guys. One last thing, shameless promotion of the Remarkable Practice. Some people don't think that they need coaching. I would first ask you, like, how important is it to have a coach? And I know I'm not everybody's coach, But would you describe, like, you guys have both had coaches before, right? So different coaching, like what makes TRP different, and why are we the right coach for you?
So we even when we had separate practices, we always had a coach. Always. If I was without a coach, it was for less than a year, for sure. Like the whole 20 years that I've been in practice. When I was an associate, the doctor I worked for had a coach. You got to have a coach. I mean, unless you don't want to grow, you got to have a coach, like 100%. And that's not just true for practice. I mean, anything you want to get better at, you have to have a coach.
Yeah. Growth shows up a lot of ways, not just growing revenue, growing profit. It's like,
Yeah.
about growing yourself or growing your life or growing your freedom or growing, fill in the blank. Growth shows up a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, I'd argue you definitely need one if you want to sell, right? Like you need a coach if you're planning to do that. So, but I would say, having been with a lot of different coaching companies and gotten so much from all of them, this one is A, the most sustainable, and B, this is where chiropractic is heading. Like if you're not building out a business, then it's going to be a lot harder to practice 10 years from now. Like I think this decade has shown us that. Like, this is where chiropractic's headed. And if you're not able to look at a vital signs sheet and know that you're spending money on the right marketing, that you have the right people in the right seats doing the right work, if you're not certain on those kinds of things, then it's going to be really hard to see patients on Monday morning.
That's exactly right. I like to say that for those people who are like, yeah, but you know what? I'm not really into the business. I'm into the practice. So I don't know if this resonates. And I'm like, listen, I totally get that, but you better learn how to create a remarkable business or you're going to end up practicing for somebody else who has, right? So it's like, you have to create the business, which allows the environment where you can do your great clinical care, right? So it's like, it's going to be one of those two things. You're either going to create the business that protects you so that you can deliver great care, or you're going to end up working for somebody who has done that. Nate, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, right to that point. Like I think with the remarkable practice, but also with how fast learning is accessible now these days, there's going to be this division between practices that have a solid business operations behind it, and they have the knowledge and the lexicon and can speak the language, or there's going to be this gap of just owner operator, small business, one doc, maybe somebody at the front desk. This middle ground, I don't think is going to be sustainable. And so that's why we're allowed, like what the remarkable practice done for us is like being able to set a target and really start to learn so much faster. I don't know about you, but I'm learning way more now, 20 years into practice, than I was ever possible for me when I first started out. I mean, the learning now is crazy. So, and plus the access to that, and like you, to have somebody who is ahead of us. I mean, so far ahead of us, but like, at least we know, like, we want to go where you're going, right? You've been where we want to go, and you can coach us and you can teach us and you can at least tell us the pitfalls. I mean, we'll obviously learn and hit those ourselves, but at least you can help us get out of those pitfalls faster. Cause we're going to make mistakes, but, just the access to, information and building, and I mean, the remarkable practice is the best that I've seen at that. And I've been doing this a long time.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Yeah. What chiropractors need now is a tour guide, not a travel agent, right? So I consider our team of coaches just like spectacular tour guides. We'll show you around the village. We know it well, right? We're not going to send you to places we've never been. All right, gentlemen, Dr. Nate, Dr. Aaron, appreciate you guys. Thanks so much. It's a privilege.
Thanks, Doc.
Thanks, Dr. Branson.
Please stick around for more business insights from this week's bonus interview with our remarkable success partner, dedicated to helping you more successfully help more people. Enjoy.
All right. Welcome to the Remarkable Practice Success Partner podcast. I'm here with Bel from Investorus Strategists. How are you today, Bel?
Really good. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having us on.
My pleasure. Let's dive in and talk a little bit about how Investorus can help our DCs, our CEOs who are looking to not just grow their business, but have a remarkable life and have a remarkable practice as part of that remarkable life. So for people that aren't familiar with Investorus, tell us, what specific problems does Investorus solve? How do you help people? And how will you help our DCs and our CEOs?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Well, I guess just to start at the beginning, Investorus was formed out of a need, particularly during COVID, where there was a lot of shutdowns and people were struggling financially. There was a great inspiration to actually set up a business that could offer the range of financial services to help navigate. Because obviously, chiros do such a good job at giving back to the community and leaders in their field in terms of their expertise. So why not support them in their financial journey, helping them understand giving money a purpose is really important, and not be at the liberties of lockdowns and shutdowns. So that's the inspiration behind Investorus starting. Now, from there, the people that are involved in Investorus in terms of the operational, we've got Sue's our general manager. So she's achieved a lifetime acknowledgement in the financial space. So years and years and years of expertise helping thousands of people across Australia. Myself, I specialise particularly in strategy and acquisitions, mainly in the property sector. And it's pretty much all I've done my whole adult life in some way, shape or form. And then we've really built a team around that based on individual values. So from our operational team to our admin team to our heads of department, everyone's really aligned with what they do. So it sets a great foundation from a business perspective and how we can give back and serve the chiropractic community, but also just everyday mum and dads as well out there. So that sort of sets the tone and foundation of who we are and what we do. So in terms of what problem do we solve, ultimately, it's helping people get clarity on their financial goals, often putting in systems and structures in place in terms of making sure they spend less than what they earn is step one. And obviously making sure that they do have a bit of an acquisition strategy, around what their long-term goals are financially. And the range of services that come involved in that is really tailored to the individual. When you think about life and a journey, someone who's a student and not really earning much versus once they do graduate and start earning an income is different to someone who's setting up a family, possibly a business as well, versus someone who, has built their financial wealth. So there's different stages of life, which also require different financial strategies as well within that. So that's ultimately what we do, is look at an individual situation. What are they trying to achieve? Where are they at in life? And mapping that gap out for them. Say what?
So, well, it's funny you add the if they want, because I don't really think I know anyone, and I don't know that I could know anyone that is comfortable with, always being stressed about money, not getting ahead, not being comfortable in their circumstance, whether that's what they, I hear stories of people wanting to rent, forever nowadays and, not be tied down to a house. But then I hear people like myself, we want to buy a property. We want to have a great family home that's stable and secure. But I can't imagine anybody being like, yeah, I'm happy with not being financially successful for the rest of my life. Now, one of the things that I've done a lot of work on is sort of mindset around what money actually means. With the chiropractors that you've been able to help, like you said, phenomenal at helping our community. Have you noticed kind of a pattern that they don't have their mindset around money and wealth and income right? Have you noticed that?
Yeah, look, I think it's a really great observation. And I think not just even specifically to the chiropractic community, I think generally the chiros are more aware, just in the different, areas of life compared to the everyday average Australian. Now, in that, I always like to relate one-on-one to an individual because that's what's going to drive them. I've got students who are, they came to me in year 3 of their chiropractic, obviously, study. And in that, they were still able to save. It wasn't a lot, but they were still able to save. So they set a really good discipline and foundation. And that's because their values showed that wealth was in their top 3 values. So they were naturally driven. They just didn't have the tools and plan to help put in place. So other people, money isn't in their top values. As long as they've got enough to put food on the table and a roof over their head, often they're not inspired for more. So we've got to meet people with where they're at in terms of their mindset, their understanding of what's important, and sometimes linking those values in terms of, why it is important to put that discipline in place and have a bit of a plan and understanding and review it at least every year, can really help empower them in becoming, more responsible and driven in that.
you're really talking some TRP language there, because we talk about, the first thing we always talk about with people in terms of their practice is, and in terms of their life, is what's the vision? Like, where do you want to go?
Yeah.
And I guess
Yeah.
people are probably coming to you lacking a financial vision, or lacking a sort of a concept of where they want to go, or even what they can potentially achieve. Is that you see that a lot as well?
Absolutely. And also, I think as well, there's different areas of expertise. And when it comes to finance and wealth, there's a lot of detail in there. And a lot of people, particularly if we look at having a bit of an acquisition plan around investment properties, if someone has a home and they're struggling with their repayments, they often don't understand, what financial impact another investment property can have. And they think that it's going to be the same cost outlay as what their home loan is. And it's very, very different from a numbers and performance aspect. So we like to really give a lot of education in that process for clients too, and back it up with research data and real numbers that are specific to them and their individual situation. Because if we think about it, what stops people, a big aspect of that is fear. And so if they have the knowledge, they have the information, they can ask those additional questions. It gives them the confidence and courage to take that next step. And then through that, if they start to get results and outcomes, it encourages them to keep moving forward, whilst having a really good community of support and people in their fields of expertise that they can rely on if they get stuck.
So I love that you brought up fear as being a major barrier for financial success, because I don't know if you've heard the acronym. A lot of people have, a lot of people haven't, but fear is false evidence appearing real. And you guys are presenting actual data to be like, no, this is the actual evidence of what we can achieve and what we can do based on how the market is right now. And, you're crunching the numbers, right? Again, that's another TRP value, is we love our metrics. We've got to have our metrics out there, right? In terms of, I guess, building on that, what's the typical, and obviously in the service you're in, you can't go, we're definitely going to give this percentage return on investment, but what's the typical ROI that a CEO who's working with you can expect, not necessarily just in like a financial quantifiable term, but like in terms of, is it that they've got their money right, or they're more confident in their money? Obviously we want our money to grow when we're investing it, but I guess we understand the market kind of dictates that kind of reality, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a really good point. And what we look at is, how do we set up a strategy of success that rides the market volatilities? We know that markets are going to go up and down. So generally, when we're working with clients, we want a long-term acquisition program for them. And the risk of where they can potentially lose money is if for some reason they have to sell when the market's low. So there's lots of great strategies in place to be able to mitigate and prevent that. Now, in a scenario like that, depending on what an individual is, we cost base a program that's tailored to an individual. So I've done packages starting from $500 up to $10,000, depending on what someone's needs are and what problem we're trying to solve for that individual. Now, what we want to do is get people on a really good foundation of making sure they spend less than what they earn. And some people don't even know what their budget is, and that's perfectly normal, but we want to fix that and get that right, because what we can then do is those surplus funds that they have in their budget can then really start to go towards accumulating wealth. Now, that can sometimes come from a debt reduction strategy initially, but we want to get assets over time that are continuing, obviously, to grow. So in my experience working with clients, I've had one person that paid $500. We've probably, in the process, if we drew a line in the sand now, after working with him for about 18 months, his return on that is sitting at around $15,000 in that period of time. And this is a student who's just not long graduated. Now, on the flip side, we've had clients that have paid, just our standard $2,500 fee. And within 3 years, they made about $300,000 in that scenario. So, generally speaking, there's a few different variables there, but it needs to be at least a dollar for dollar return, generally speaking. And I've had a client who paid, was completely engaged, circumstances changed, and they decided not to take action. And in that situation, I just ended up refunding them their money, and they went down a different path. And there's no right or wrong. It's about a journey of getting the right people in terms of where you're at and what you're looking to achieve in that growth part. So we're not going to be for everyone. We want people that want help in terms of taking action. So yeah, that gives you
It
a
sounds
bit of
like you
insight.
can. It sounds like you can help everyone, but it's whether or not they're ready to actually take sort of that next step and follow the advice. Again, like we can relate this back to chiropractic. You get patients, they come in, they're like, well, I want this. And we're like, okay, then if you want that, you need to do this. And they go,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know if I'm ready to do that. But I still believe chiropractic can help everyone, just like you guys have helped students, you've helped DCs. The first time I heard the Investorus team speak at an immersion, I was like, my CAs would really benefit from this because, we're all in the economy. We're all trying to build, not necessarily wealth, but safety and security. For that, we mentioned that group of people that nowadays they don't want to commit to a house and they want to be able to freewheel. They would, I'm sure their goal is something like making sure they can go on a European holiday every 12 months or something like that. And I'm sure you've had plenty of people help save for a holiday.
Oh, absolutely. And also that's where I say that individuals' values and as a family become really important as well, because if they can see that they can do it all and there's a method in place to be able to achieve all of those things, then it makes that decision easy for them. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
perfect.
absolutely. And obviously, there's a really sweet spot in our clientele where they've maybe got a home, maybe started to build some wealth and, have surplus funds and they don't know what to do and what those next steps are. And, there's a level of cost of timing in the market. Sometimes sitting there being stagnant is actually costing people their wealth, not just in potential tax benefits and savings, but also acquiring those assets that are beating inflation essentially. So if someone's just got cash sitting there without the assets behind them, they can actually be going backwards. So getting that balance right from an education and just seeing the different options that are available can be really helpful for people in being confident to take those decisions and move forward.
Yeah, it's a bit of a scary sort of prospect when you start talking about inflation and like money just sitting there in a bank account actually becoming gradually and gradually worth less and less. It's a horrifying thought. And I guess building on that, when you look into the future, and Australia's certainly had some massive curveballs around tax legislation in terms of investment. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market. How are you helping our DCs and our CEOs be prepared to succeed more in the future? We've kind of already talked a little bit about this, but like if you could give me like a one line on BAM, this is how we help them succeed, that would be fantastic.
This is more of a spiel, but I think this is a big wake up call for people financially with the changes that are looking to happen. Opportunities that have been available are now no longer available. So this hopefully puts a rocket up people's backsides and starts to inspire them about taking action for their long-term security around not just their own financial planning and wealth creation, but also implementing some legacy wealth as well for the next generation too. We try and bridge the gap of where they're at and what they want to achieve and the action steps needed to be in there with the support to be able to do it. Everyone has their strengths and we don't want to load up chiros with additional work to do. We want to try and let them outsource to the admin team we have to implement as much as we can and keep them as the CEOs of their wealth so that they've got the information, they can make strategic decisions that align with what they're trying to achieve and then have the admin support and resources available for them.
Yeah, I love you bringing up legacy wealth because I've got 3 kids and that's absolutely on our priority, even in terms of it was the family home in terms of purchasing this as what would be a stable, secure, asset that would continue to grow, almost no matter what the market did, but also give them space for like some legacy wealth on the other side of us not being here and one day or us downsizing and being able to hand something on that sets them up for the future. Because I don't know about you, but I'm looking ahead and I'm thinking it's getting harder and harder for our kids to be able to succeed financially than it was for us. And, you know, I'd say that the average person feels like it's harder for our generation to succeed financially compared to our parents' generation, and so on and so on and so on. Australia's in a little bit of a pickle in terms of this kind of stuff, aren't they?
Oh, definitely. And I always look at it from an objective point of view. In the question that I ask is, where's the opportunity? Because in any market, there's always opportunities. So in that, sometimes I think the best roles parents can play or leaders in the family can play is demonstrating by example, and being able to be empowered in money, and what that looks like for your family is sometimes one of the best legacies you can leave for your kids. So like I said, if we can inspire people to lead by example in that scenario and create the opportunities regardless of the market, that really sets them up for a bit of a recipe of success for their long-term wealth.
So you're talking about not just actually having a good bank account, but you're talking about what your kids being able to watch the parents do something like, invest without fear, or, know what to do or know how to handle the situation, not overspend, really like lead by example and show them how to be wise with wealth. That, I guess that's kind of the concept as well, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it comes down to it, I think, from me personally in my scenario. Like I started where I couldn't afford to buy a home, so I had no choice but to go down the rent and invest journey. So, I'm a big believer in that, having walked that path myself. And, what's really inspiring is being able to share that journey with people. So when they feel a bit lost or helpless in how do I do this, there's a path there that I can clearly demonstrate just from personal example, and then the numbers and that back it up. So I think from a leadership position in families, that legacy wealth really starts with the parents. So the mindset side is a big aspect that, we identify often in the first meetings with clients, whether they're aware of it or not, because that's really going to be a determining factor of their continued long-term success. So, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I would be surprised if anyone listening in is not sold on the idea that they need to do something. If they're sitting there with, whether they're sitting there with a full bank account that's not going anywhere and actually, decreasing thanks to inflation, or they're sitting there with an empty bank account thinking, hey, well, how do I beef this up a little bit? For either of those people, what's the best way for them to learn more, get in touch with you, and take the next step in terms of getting some advice?
Yeah, so one of the great things is we do offer some complimentary one-on-one appointments, and generally they range from 15 minutes to 30 minutes.
Mhm.
It's a great chance to understand where someone's at and what they're trying to achieve and where they're stuck. If they're doing all of the right things but not getting ahead, we can often in those meetings point out some gaps that they can take action on. And if we can help someone just get to the next level, that's part of our contribution back to the community for the chiropractors. Now, if they decide to come on board and see the value that we can add, depending on what phase they're at and what they're looking to achieve, then we'll offer them an overview in terms of a strategy, and that will just give them a clear path, and also what cost of the investment is going to be for them and what outcome. So it's very measurable from their perspective, and then they can take action when they're ready.
Fabulous. So the best thing is that free little intro call, 15 minutes to half an hour. It's
Yep.
not a huge chunk of the day. It's a very small time investment for potentially what can be massive in terms of wealth creation. They can get in contact through your website, through your social media, and even if you're a TRP doc, contact TRP and we'll link you up with Investorus.
Yeah, perfect.
Fabulous. Thanks so much for your time this morning, Bel. And I will see you at the next live event.
Yeah, can't wait. Thanks all. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, share with a friend, and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with us personally, direct message us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Remember, what the world needs now is chiropractic, and what chiropractic needs now is more successful chiropractors.